Hey folks, it's Kozzi here for Pick 1 Pack 1, running another draft. This is the new draft season, everything's been reset. Looking forward to seeing how this pans out. And it looks as though we have a relatively interesting first pack. Brazen Daredevil is a very good card in the Warcry build. If you're able to get equipment on her, or if you're able to get +1/+1, she becomes very powerful very quickly. Oryx Sentry is a useful role player for the Warcry build. Torch is premium removal, and Stonescar Magus is an above average creature. Whilst Brazen Daredevil would be a bit of fun to build around, it's pretty hard to go past the Torch. Torch just does everything you want it to do. And it's also a premium one, which is useful for me when I start to build my constructed decks. Next up we have Righteous Fury, which is a phenomenal combat trick. It kills people dead, but it is a combat trick, it is 2 colors, and I think at this point in time I'd rather still be just developing out. We have Crownwatch Deserter, which is a very solid card if we want to be going into the Warcry build, likewise for the Acolyte. Wisdom of the Elders, very solid card. Amber Acolyte is great if you're going in solid time and splashing. I think the strongest card in the pack is probably a toss-up between Wisdom and Righteous, and the most playable for me is probably Crownwatch, especially as the Torch is a great card, so I'd like to take the opportunity to pick it, but I don't necessarily want to be wedded to it, but let's see how this goes. Rise to the Challenge is tutor for whatever you want in your deck. It's a very useful card so long as you've got something powerful enough to catch you up with it. Combre Healer is great if you're again in that dominant time splashing. We have ourselves the opportunity for another Crownwatch Deserter and an Inspire as well. And also Dural's Frostkin's a very powerful card, but I think let's see if we can commit to this archetype and make it work. Blind Storyteller, solid card, same for the Life Drinker. Mithril Mace is a card that I don't mind, but I don't love. Not a massive fan of the Valkyrie Aspirant, although if you're going ultra aggressive it does play a definite role. Likewise for the Treasury Guard, not a hugest fan. Perhaps we'll find ourselves splashing. Out of these, I'm very happy to grab my Granadin Drone. If they get pumped up at all, you're absolutely laughing. And through this, I'm not super interested in the Ruin, but I am interested in the Dark Return, especially if I can facilitate a way of splashing. That's quite late Frostkin and Terrazon. And I haven't seen much red or green since. However, if I'm serious about playing these cards, I'll be happy to have a Rampage. Wow. Okay, it's 2 Torches. There just mustn't have been many red cards in the packs. It's one of the unusual things about Eternal is that the cards are just slotted in randomly. So it's not as though it has some algorithm, as far as I can tell, for the number of colors or for the rarities. Instead, it's just random number generator, here are the cards you get. And so this makes me think that there wasn't much good red in any of the packs, and that this has gone around. Like, this is pick 8. So this has gone through every single person other than me on my right. Which makes me think I'm going to get fed red very nicely later in the game. I'm quite a fan of Stalwart Shield, just giving endurance. It turns off certain forms of removal, it means that you can attack as well as defend. Hoover Fledging is nice because it gives me flying and evasion, but I do like that card, so I think I'll stay with it. So here we start to make some choices. We can either look at going into Shadow with the Argenport Instigator, which I think will work very well with me having as many torches as I do, or we can stay to the Rakano build, either looking at the Bright Mace Paladin or the Longhorn Sergeant. So far I haven't been given any good green cards at all. All I've been given is 2 multicolored cards. It could change going through the left, especially as I haven't passed through any good green. It's likely that I'll get some heading in this direction. But I was given a late Dark Return, Life Drinker went through. And worst case scenario, it is splashable, but it is early on the curve. So this is really one of the opportunities for me to make my call on which direction I want this draft to go. I haven't had any equipment yet, which drops the Bright Mace a little bit. But no, I feel as though having some torches, let's see how we can go here. If I see some good cards coming through in the other colours that will pull me in another direction, then we'll reassess. Frontier Jito, not so great in Limited unless you're really building around it. This deck looks like it's getting close enough to being aggressive enough. Rapid Shot is a great combat trick for this deck, but I think the Bright Mace is probably good enough, especially if we see one or two more cards in a similar style. I'll be happy to start to look into a sacrifice effects, having the tokens. How much do I want Rise to the Challenge? Stonescar is good, doesn't really fit into this build as much. Scavenging Vulture is reasonable. Let's see what we can get. We could have gotten 2 Stonescars. There you go. Well, if that's the case, I'll stay on this plan. Yeah, okay, so I've made a mistake here. I really should have been shifting over. I've left it pretty late, but it's not too late. Lurking Sangua is good if we get a huge number of tokens, but Ravenous Thornbeast, well, it's also token reliant. If we get more Thornbeasts, we can start to look at sack cards like that. Let's stay aggressive. I think even though Zen and Destroy is amazing, I think Warband Chieftain is just too good on my top end. And we have some solid tokens. So this is where I could seriously think about getting a Combust. I currently have 2 Grenadin drones, which will be making 4 tokens. I have a pair of Recogulators, and I also have a Ravenous Thornbeast, which means I'm really beginning to seriously think about heading down a token direction. And if I do, the Combust is a very, very efficient form of removal. It is absolutely unconditional. There is a huge opportunity cost in playing a Warband Chieftain, but with this kind of deck I want to stay as low to the ground as I possibly can. Life Drinker is also a good card, but you know what, I haven't had the chance to play a token build, so I think I'd like to try and build and just see how it works out. I feel as though this will be a bit of fun. We have a choice between the Worldpire Phoenix and the Granite Acolyte, and also the Stonescar Stranger. So it's one of those of how much do I want to hedge my bets. We can either have a top end, or we can go ultra into the archetype. That'll be useful considering I'll probably be playing this Blood Beetle, I'll be playing the drones. This is such a good card. I think we'll take it and hope that a couple more come through. If we're playing tokens, we want a copy of Rally. Outland Sniper is a very, very good card because it will kill one of their blockers and then return. And then Smuggler's Stash is great if we get a couple more weapons, and it'll bring back creatures that plausibly are too weak at that point in time, or I can get a Rampage. We already have 2 Rampages and we don't have a stash, so I think I'll take the stash. And if I want to stay aggressive, then Ruthless Stranger is an interesting option. Otherwise, I could go for a scheme which gives me selection of just finding the one card I need at that point in time. It's very tempo inefficient. Or indeed, if I'm running Rampages, perhaps I'm happy to take the 5-2. Well, I have a fair few 4s. I didn't pick up that Stranger from before. But I think we should commit. Let's go as aggressive as we possibly can. The fixing is fantastic. Soul Collector will give me a bit of longevity. It's likely that I could be interested in that. And if I were to be playing Rakana, that would be phenomenal. I'm very, very tempted to splash for the field captain. If I'm attacking with a whole bunch of cheap guys, he could be phenomenal. Now that's an absolute gift to me in what I'm trying to do. I could also be tempted by the Thorn Beast if this wasn't here. But given that I want to be Warcrying, given that I want to be aggressive, it's precisely what I want to be doing. Now I have a choice between the Sharpshooter and the Thorn Beast. The Sharpshooter is better if we get more Warcry, and it is better if we get more equipment. The Thorn Beast is better with the tokens, so I feel as though I've just answered what I want to be doing. We have a choice of the Stranger to make sure that we have our faction. We could be playing the Raid Leader, which has charge, which could be a top end that just finishes us off. We already have a fair few 5s. So perhaps the idea of having an Execute is better. Yeah, I think I'll go with that. Brimstone Altar. Yeah, ordinarily I look over this straight away, but if there's a deck that's going to be able to do this, and we get 1 or 2 more Granite drones or other token generators, I feel as though that could be a very useful card for us. And now we effectively have a choice between Stonescar Stranger and Devour. As far as creatures go, we have a Blood Beetle, we have a pair of Granite drones, a Stranger, and then not very many 2s at all. I think that makes my decision easy. I think we'll take the extra beast, it's significantly better. And we'll take the Recruiter. This isn't quite as low to the ground as I was hoping it to be. We didn't really see many good cheap creatures or cards, although we're getting a couple through now. Okay. We got fed very nicely late. I don't think the splash is on the cards right now. So let's take a look at this. So we start off with a series of 1-drops. We have the Blood Beetle, we have the drones, we have the Stranger, dropping into Instigator, Wisp, Pyrodept, Scavenging Vulture's reasonable in the Stranger. We have utility from whatever gets made redundant, both through the Thorn Beast and also through the Brimstone Altar. The Brimstone Altar is going to be a rubbish card in certain circumstances, but it could well be the best one I have later on. Although it only does damage to the player rather than to creatures. If it did damage to creatures, I'd be a lot more interested in it. But it can be that final piece of reach for me. We have some very solid 3s, and then Cabal Recruiter, who's only really good if I'm able to manage the board effectively. Javelin is piece removal, Sniper, Recogulators. I think we're going to be having a fair number of units die. And if we have enough tokens, that's definitely our finisher. Stash isn't at its best. We don't have a lot of weapons, so I think we drop it. Chieftain is adequate. Worldpire Phoenix is very, very expensive for what this deck wants to do, and I think I want to be running nice and low to the ground, so I think we'll drop the Pyre Phoenix as well. Do we have enough tokens to justify Rally? I think it's likely that we will, and it allows me to make my 1-drops relevant again. I think the Altar is a mistake to run. I don't love the Stranger. And I could be convinced to drop the Recruiter, although it's very powerful when it hits. Otherwise, I could also be convinced to drop one of these 3s. question really is which one. Life Drinker is great if I've already got an established board and I can pick off their last guy. The rest of these are amazing. I do like the Execute. I'm not as worried in having too many 3s because I have a lot of 1s to complement them, so the other thing I could be considering is losing some of my top end. And it's the 4s that don't look phenomenal. All of these are just reasonable. Javelin gets a lot better when you have War Cries, as it's probably just a piece of tempo disadvantage unlike the others. And whilst I have 3 pieces of removal, yeah, I could be convinced to look at that. And if that's the case, we're looking 50-50. And so there we have 15, 16 sigils, which I think, considering how low the curve is, I'm quite happy to run. Cool. Well, we've run a couple of different types of Stonescar builds. It seems as though either I've got an unreasonable propensity and an overbias on the cards to draft them, or it's just what's been coming through to me. So join me with the next video and we'll see just how this Stonescar token deck turns out.